Trail cameras.
Trail cameras, this nation's.
I just was like, let's let it go. Let's let it go. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we can get some emails saying you guys are having technical difficulties. Zach just said trail cameras, and I didn't hear anything else.
Are you guys broken?
It's this nation's greatest disagreement between two groups.
It is. To trail camera or not to trail camera?
There's
that
nothing
is the question today.
more severe in this country than that at this point.
Oh, there is some conversation to be had.
Well, that's, I guess, the only thing that would be comparable is the other controversial topic that we often bring up here, heavy arrows versus light arrows, but that's for all the other content that we're creating while here.
Yeah, we can hit the big three while we're here. Trail cameras, heavy or not heavy, to bait or not to bait.
Oh, wow. You're talking about, rabbit canyons that we're going to be in. Holy cow.
Rabbit canyons.
Anyway, trail cameras. Our opinions have changed a lot over the years. This is the current status of the world, I think. I'll try to give a high-level view, and then we can peruse down these little tunnels. More and more states are considering outlawing the cell cameras. Some states have already done it. Others, it is on the docket. It's a main topic of conversation at these commission meetings. Is technology going too far in the hunting world? Yeah, and a lot of this is happening just in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. Iowa just about outlawed them last year. But then they decided because of hunter pressure and stuff to keep them, but it's still on the docket to talk about and to change some rules. Who knows what's going to happen, but definitely the cell cameras has changed things. Before that, regular trail cameras were changing things, but the cell cameras have put it into overdrive. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know what it's going to look like in 5 or 10 years, but I would imagine that more states are going to outlaw them.
Oh, look at this. Look at that.
Skeeter?
Oh. He's feeding. He's at the buffet right
I would have
now.
killed him already. You were observing him for way too long.
And that didn't even kill him. He's still alive. He's resilient.
Yeah, these Texas mosquitoes.
Sitting right there.
Giant.
Man, that's a giant.
Good harvest.
Get
giant
him to the
skeeters.
taxidermy.
So how you want to do this?
Should that one before you got him down? Fan him out, Nick.
How you want to do this? You want to go around and kind of just everybody give their own opinion or their own stories? I feel like this has been an evolution in thinking for each of us.
I feel like talking about kind of our own experiences and how they've, ultimately led to how we feel about it now would probably be a good thing. And I mean, the one thing just to add to what you were going to say at the beginning, I feel that, they're going into this, it's important to note, I don't think we're trying to say that there aren't other technology pieces that hunters use. Like, you could make arguments all day, there's going to be comments that be like, well, if you're gonna argue the technology thing, like, well, then why don't you use, longbows and rock broadheads or whatever, flint broadheads. Like, yeah, I'm not saying that the conversation stops at trail cameras as far as technology goes. I think it's just these trail cameras and cell phone service and all these things are advancing it so quickly that I think if people aren't having these conversations, all of a sudden we look back and we're like, oh yeah, we all feel that we went too far if we're not at least thinking about it beforehand, because technology's likely just going to improve and continue to make things easier.
Yeah, and each one of these is its own issue, its own ball of wax that you have to consider. Like you said about the bow thing, and it's going on with muzzle loaders and maps, and
yeah, muzzle loader isn't the same thing it was when we were kids or when our parents were kids or grandparents were kids. Like, that's not the same. So, maps aren't the same. There's so many different topics you can talk about. Right now, we're just focusing on the trail camera thing and the cell camera thing.
Well, I'll start with my, I guess, the last 5-year story. Mm-hmm. I'll try to keep it brief, and then we can kind of go around, because I know me and Ted talked about this all the way down here, and he's got some interesting stuff from last year alone. I feel like we used to use them a lot, and my favorite way to use them 5 to 10 years ago was to go in and scout a bedding area, put some lithium batteries in them, and just leave them soak for the whole fall. We wouldn't check them often. We'd just leave it. We'd be scouting in like August or July. We'd set them up in a sensitive area, and we'd let them run for 6 months and then go pick them up after the season was over. And those were really fun. Like, you could get a lot of real good information. We did that last year. And with that camera we were just talking about a while ago that I got to get you the videos from.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You all put a camera out in early November and just let it soak.
Yep.
It was not a cell camera, or even if it was just set up without the cell camera thing on.
Yeah.
And just
we never even went
videos.
back. I mean, we set it up the day before we left to go home.
Yep. And then I went and picked it up in February.
Yeah.
I love those types of cameras. Like that. That's my jam.
Mm-hmm.
I like going in somewhere, setting it up, not even thinking about it for 4 or 5 months, then going back and learning about what happened in that area that fall to help me in the future. That's my jam. But then the cell cameras come along, and now you're getting all this information day of. And a few years ago, it was the last year that I bow hunted in Iowa, I had a bunch of cell cameras out, and we started getting pictures of a ginormous deer. I don't know how many inches, but many.
Big inches.
Big enough that, when you
we
start...
called him Big Inches.
When you start flirting with the 200-inch number, people start coming out of the woodwork on public land to figure out where in the heck this thing's at. And, like, last year I heard a story from one of the guys, the DNR guys in Iowa, because he's a friend of mine, and we talk a lot about, the status of the turkey population and everything. And he's like, dude, there was a 210 killed right over here last year, and there was 3-4 guys in there that were hunting him. He said, I bet you there was 40 trail cameras on those 3 ridges. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about 100 acres. He's like, they had them set everywhere in there. Like, that buck was getting his picture taken every single day for a month straight before one of those guys killed him. Mm-hmm. I was like, man, that is so different from what it was 5-10 years ago. And anyway, Jake was like, man, you got to hunt him. Like, that's the biggest deer that you may ever see, especially on public land. So I was in there scattering cameras everywhere, hunting him. We'd be here and then go home later on and figure out, like, oh, the sun gun was over here at this other camera that day. So we'd move over to where that camera was at, wouldn't see him, spooking deer all over the place. Needless to say, I hunted like 30 times in Iowa, never killed a buck. It was probably the worst bow season that I'd had. And I just obsessed over cameras the whole season in that buck. Never saw him. Not once. Got all those pictures of him. Never saw him. Because I was always reacting to, okay, I got a picture of him at 6 a.m. I got to hunt right there where that camera's at today. Or right around that camera. Mm-hmm. So after that, I just said, screw these things. I'm going to go back to the way it used to be and start focusing on woodsmanship and scouting and picking spots to hunt and going in there not really knowing what was going on. And since then, I've had way more success. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a mental thing too, because I just mentally was occupied. And like you were talking about the phones there, I mean, this thing was going off in the middle of the night. Yeah, like, I was having trouble sleeping because I would want to wake up and look at my phone to see if one of those big boys was on whatever camera.
When you told me that, like, after the season, I was like, yeah, that's rough.
You don't
when you're
realize
waking up
it
in the middle of the night, or that's the first thing you're looking at in the morning. Like, that's rough. I mean, it's getting really weird then.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's how it is.
You got
like
a problem.
You're constantly.
Is Big Inches there?
Yeah.
Baby's crying in the background. Somebody will feed him. I got to see if Big Inches was on there.
Oh yeah, wife wakes me up and she's like, "Will you take the dogs out?" And she's scratching at the door. It's like, "Yeah, but just give me 2 minutes here." Yeah. She's like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "Are you texting another girl or something?" It's like, "No,
no, I'm looking for Big Inches.
This buck just showed up on the camera 15 minutes ago, and I got to leave in an hour and a half. I may try to hunt that spot,
Right.
Well, yeah. And needless to say, it wrecked my brain, and I couldn't.
You weren't in good shape. You were stressing about it. I remember talking about it, and just in general, like, kind of by the end of it, you're like, yeah, this needs to stop.
Yeah, I after that season, I'm like, screw these cell cameras. I'm still putting some of them out occasionally, but even last year when we were hunting, I was still obsessing over the things, I went from having that year I had like a dozen or more out, so it's like the pictures are just flooding in all the time from one of them. There's a big buck in front of one of them every day.
Yeah.
because you got so many of them out. So then you're just chasing the cameras
Right.
around. You're not the woodsmanship goes out the window.
Oh, yeah.
And last year I only used maybe 3 or 4, but it still was there in the back of my mind. And I know it's inhibiting my ability to make, good instinctive woodsmanship decisions while I'm out there in the woods hunting.
Well, where you killed a big buck is where you didn't have a cell camera, where we just had prior knowledge from where we had hunted in there the year before and seen deer, and then went back in there, and then you killed, hell, we had 2 big deer in there, but you killed one of them.
Yeah, no camera. Never had a camera in there. Just a progression through time.
Yep.
And waiting for the right time to hunt that spot and not worried about those stupid things. But anyway, as you can tell, I've got an opinion. Everybody does, so just bear with me on that. But I've really struggled the last few years with them. That's been my story. But what about you, Ted?
Yeah, so I kind of had a similar thing happen this year where I was doing the trail camera thing, just putting them all over the place. And same deal. I would be looking at the cameras. I get a picture over here, get a picture over there, and then I'd dive in and hunt that spot, and I just wouldn't see hardly anything a lot of the time. So we did that most of the year, kind of chasing the cameras around. And probably the one that stuck with me the most last year was went in. It was a warm day, and we weren't on anything really up to that point. So I was like, well, we're just going to take pretty much all day, and we're just going to scout a bunch of different spots. So we went in, found a spot with just tons of rubs and scrapes, and like one big, like real horizontal type rub, just nasty buck sign all over the place. And it's October 29th or something.
Prime time.
Oh, yeah, prime time. But it was just warm, and we weren't on anything. So I'm like, well, I like this spot, obviously. This is great. But we're going to hang a camera here, and then we're going to go check some other spots. So that way when the weather gets a little bit better, we're going to be able to bounce to these spots and walk out of there, go to another spot, hunt it, and see some deer that night. And then we get back to the car, and I look, and there was 2 just freaking studs in front of the camera right at last light.
Right where you just hung it.
Right where I just hung it. Right
So
where
if you'd have just stayed there.
Oh, yeah. If we'd have just, like, normally, that's the thing. If I wouldn't have had a trail camera and I was just going hunting and I picked that spot to go in there and scout it and hunt it, I'd have set up right there where I hung the trail camera and had a great hunt.
Yep.
But instead, I backed out of there. And then the funny thing is, then we went in there after that. I think it was the next day, and hunted all day, daylight to dark. Saw one small buck like this all day in there. So
you weren't pissed off or anything?
Oh, yeah, I was pissed.
No, here's an additional part to that story that I know of, and I heard both Brett and Ted's version. Is like, basically Ted hits this peak of frustration with these cameras, and I think this part's cool. Hits this peak of frustration, and I think like a young buck or a button buck or something
Spike
smelled you guys.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're just like, we're done. We got to take a break, bail, like stop for like a day, like 24 hours or whatever, and then go back. And then from that point on, everything got better. Like
Yeah.
You like were resetting your mind
Yeah. Well,
to hunt differently.
that whole morning that you're talking about was funny because we were same thing. Like I kept chasing the cameras basically. Weren't on nothing. It was November 2nd, and we go in and hunt this spot where I had gotten 2 pictures of like really big deer, and go in and set up. It's kind of a hot morning, whatever. We're sitting there not seeing anything, and we're looking out across this huge bottom, and all of a sudden this spike pops up and like walks to 15 yards, and we're sitting there, and he gets up to like 15, like I said, and he's just standing there looking right at us, and I'm like, what the hell are we doing here? So I text, there was a bunch of Wisconsin guys hunting around the house, staying with us, so I text them, and I'm like, you guys seeing anything this morning? And they're like, yeah, we've shot 2 bucks, 2 real nice bucks this morning. And we had the decoy there, and I just picked it up, and I'm like, I need to take a break. And yeah, I walked out, and we had the wiggies sitting there to cross the creek and everything, and I was like, if you want the wiggies, you can go grab them if you want, but I'm out of here. And I just walk across the creek, get soaking wet, and just I'd hit the peak at that point. Yeah.
You knew you were going home anyway.
Yeah, I needed it.
At that point in the season, you're worn out because you haven't been getting any sleep. You've been at it for a month straight. So
and when you're mentally chasing, like I always just think of the term chasing your tail. Like you're just kind of going in a circle, right? Like you're just doing the same thing, and you always end up right back where you started. And I feel like, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to get there, but the situation you were in was totally the tail chasing. But then once you made that, the reason I think that it's cool is, for one, I think it's hilarious because I get that same attitude every once in a while. Every once in a while I get frustrated. But also,
it's rare.
Usually it's just like, there it is, and then it's right back to just goofing. But it's just. But anyway, we were. I think that's funny because that's also something that we've been talking about more and more over the years, is just how important taking that break is to reset your mind, because obviously then when you did it, it was less than a week later you shot that buck, right?
Yeah.
What was your mindset after the hard reset?
Oh, it was a lot better. Went home, kind of took a shower, took a little bit of time off, and then I was like, came back, and it wasn't even 24 hours. Well, yeah. No, yeah, it would have been 24 hours because I took the afternoon, didn't hunt, next morning didn't hunt, and then the next night we went back out. But yeah, then I came back and I was talking to Walker, and I'm like, all right, we're not looking at these trail cameras, not hunting around them, nothing. I'm like, we're not doing that. So then we went to some completely different area, walked in, scouted our way in, saw a real big buck that night, and then we just kind of kept moving around. And at that point, it was getting to be the rut, obviously. So we were just bouncing spot to spot, driving around the boat, and then that's when we ended up finding that spot where we killed the buck. But yeah, pretty much just completely abandoned the trail cameras completely. And then we just were having a lot better hunts because we were picking spots that I'd want to go into and just scout our way in and then hunt them.
You weren't thinking about trying to get cameras in there. You were thinking about trying to find a spot to hunt.
Yeah, I didn't even take a camera with me. I just was going hunting.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to hunt this area, general spot, and we're going to hunt it. Mm-hmm. We're going to find the spot that looks good, and we're going to hunt it. And then that was what we did until we killed the buck.
Yeah.
So you found a spot that looked good. You found a spot that had, like, several bucks
go in
and running does and stuff, and then you were like, okay, this is the X. This is where we got to be right now. And then you hunted it.
Yep.
And that worked.
Yeah,
I'd say it worked pretty well. You probably had the greatest hunting of your entire life.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing in there.
Saw two ginormous bucks, 30 minutes, killed one of them.
Yeah. So this year, me and Warb were talking about it on the way down. I was like, I don't want to put any trail cameras out, really, and that's my plan right now, is not put any trail cameras out. If I do put some out, like Warb was talking about, I just want to put them out. Not on cell cam mode where they come to my phone, just leave them out there and check them after the season. But I think I'll have a lot better hunts and probably have more fun, honestly, because I won't be thinking about, there's a picture of a buck over there.
Yeah, what you should have done or could have done, whatever.
In a lot of these situations that we find ourselves in on public land and running cameras in the pre-rut time frame, even before that, like you said, chasing your tail, Zinger. If you get a picture of a buck in a spot and you go hunt that spot, more times than not, he's already left.
Oh, yeah, he's gone on.
Like, you needed to be there the day, you needed to be there before he walked in front of that camera. You're late. Mm-hmm. You're behind him. Now, every once in a while, you can get one on a pattern out there on public where he's just coming in and going every single day. Mm-hmm. But that is rare. That does not happen very often. I can think of all of the successful hunts and the unsuccessful ones, whichever ones where we found a big buck, and that has happened like single-digit percentage of the time or less, where we were able to legit pattern one off of a camera.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you can't do it. I know there's guys that do it out there that pick specific deer out and whatnot, but it just, you're always chasing them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you get any information off the camera, like a buck on it, it might tell you, well, maybe I need to go hunt in that general area, like within 1,000 acres of that camera somewhere. But if you go set up where it's at, he's gone already.
Yeah, exactly.
Like what? This is my guess, but I'm assuming when you all found that hot sign and you set it up and you got pictures of those 2 big bucks, they were laying that sign down that day, that morning,
Oh yeah.
that night.
They were probably laying within a couple hundred
Within
yards.
a couple
of where-
hundred
Oh yeah,
yards.
because
They
we
were
were
right
literally
there.
sitting. I was like looking into this thick cover, and I'm like, that's obviously where they're gonna be at, somewhere right there. And yeah, they walked right out of that stuff in front of the camera.
Yep.
And it's like, should have just set up there and hunted it. Would've
Those
killed them
suckers
then.
were probably there for 2 or 3, 4 days, and then they
Yeah.
were gone.
Yeah.
It's like a couple years ago when me and Miles shot the buck at the farm. My stepbrother hunted the same stand the night before, mid-October. None of the scrapes were opened up. He saw a doe. Nothing. No fresh sign. Me and Miles go up there. I had no idea he hunted there the night before until this is like weeks later. So me and Miles go up there. I'm like, Miles, ain't nobody been in here for weeks. We're going into a fresh set. We got up there, fresh scrape, pea in it. Another one, fresh, huge car hood scrape, pea in it. Huge rub right there. I'm like, Miles, they are in here. Ain't nobody been in here. These bucks have moved in, you know. We've kept the pressure off. And there was none of that. I come to find out after the fact, the buck literally, or bucks, I think showed up the night before.
Yeah.
This is the middle of October. This is before they even really start cruising a whole lot. I think they moved into that bedding area on our property the night before and started marking that up, and then I killed that one that night.
Yeah.
And if I would have waited another day or two, he would have probably been gone. I might have killed him a week or two later. Who knows? But I think that happens a lot more than we think.
Oh, yeah.
They move around their core area to these different doe groups, and they may bed and live in that spot for a couple days. But
Jeez.
Nick.
I'm just falling apart right now, dude.
you're all right. But
Really,
anyway,
that was his hip bone.
that's my take on it, at least. I don't know if that's happening everywhere, but
Yeah, I mean, I definitely find them useful. Like been hunts where they've been useful, like the buck that I shot opening day a few years ago. That was where a trail camera helped us out. And then this year I shot a doe in a spot where I had trail camera pictures of them just coming through there every morning.
I've killed does doing it for
And
sure.
yeah, that was kind of a nice one because we were like, weren't on much. And I'm like, all right, well, let's just go over here and see if we can shoot one of these does. Because they'd been going through there every single morning. And so that was one where it's like, yeah, trail camera helped us get in that
The
spot.
buck that you killed with the trail camera, though, a few years ago, that was not a cell camera.
No, yeah,
That was a regular camera
was a
that
regular
we
camera.
checked, and we're like, okay, there's some big bucks in here. But then you all didn't read anything else into it. You all were just like, okay, we're going into that area. And then you scout hunted your way into it. You didn't even set up by the camera.
Yeah.
You killed him a ridge or two over from where the camera was at.
Yeah.
And one of the bucks that was in there with it was on the camera that y'all saw opening day.
Yeah.
But you weren't hunting
it.
over the camera. That was the difference between the cell camera and the old camera set, kind of. It was like you pulled information off that, but it wasn't, oh, I got his picture today. I got to go set on that camera today.
Yeah, you're not going to the camera. Like, that's how I feel like you make better decisions is we went in and, okay, the camera's over here, and there was pictures of bucks going in front of it, but now there's not for the last 3 days or whatever it was. And then we looped up on that ridge and just kind of were easing our way in, looking at it with fresh eyes, basically. And then, yeah, that ridge was just tore up with, like, feeding sign and one little rub. And I was like, well, let's just try this. And then tomorrow we can move in there a little bit further, and then didn't have to do that. So, worked out. But I just feel like I make a lot better decisions when I'm just kind of easing into a spot, checking it out with plenty of time to look around and decide where to set up. It's probably my favorite way to go about it.
Nick, I want to hear your trail camera long-term perspective.
Give us your take, Nick.
Well, over the last few years, I've used them a lot less than I have in the past. I mean, growing up, I hunted the same, the deer lease, hunted the same chunk of property, and we have like 5 to 8 trail cameras running there pretty much year-round. My dad just keeps up with them, and I liked it that way, but I definitely found myself in the past even on private and over feeders and everything, chasing my tail, going and checking a camera and being like, okay, this buck has been here every single day for a week. I'm going to kill him tomorrow, and go sit it and hunt it for 5 days straight, and then you never see him. And then you start getting night pictures of him, quarter mile away somewhere else. So I've definitely chased my tail around like that. But last year, you and I hunted, and Jake hunted with us some. Y'all rotated in. Y'all were hunting with me, and that's where we left the camera on the last day of the trip. But the rest of the time, we never hunted a trail camera, if I'm remembering right.
Nope.
Never put one out. Never even thought about it. We were on deer every day. We just we just look at a spot, determine if we liked it or not, and then we would just scout our way in, and we got into bucks almost every single day.
Yep.
And that was a lot of driving around and looking at spots, or finding deer from the vehicle and then moving in on them, or going in and like that big 10-pointer that kind of skirted us there on that cap of that ridge. I mean, we just hunted our way in there, found a good tree, and got in it, and almost killed a really big buck doing that. But no cameras.
Two very different situations there, though, that you're talking about.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
we're at the ranch right now in Texas, and he's got cells over all these feeders monitoring pigs.
Yep.
And they have helped us kill pigs in the last day.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
100%.
And then, like, in your all situation where you've got feeders out on the lease on a piece of private property where you're wanting to monitor, you're not only wanting to monitor deer, you want to know what hogs are in there, you want to know what the turkey flock looks like, and you keep those, like you said, your dad keeps up with them all year.
Yep.
You want to catch if Warb's kind of sneaking through.
Yeah, he figured out the gate code or whatever like that.
I mean, which is definitely a argument in favor of.
Oh yeah,
cameras
so
on private land.
Well, thanks for reining me back in, because I was about to just kind of spiral on just whatever. My opinion kind of is, I like for the deer lease. I love having the cameras, even though I've chased my tail around there with them. I like being able to monitor, what you got. You just see, is there a good fawn crop or turkeys? What's everything looking like? But I also see the benefit to people just taking their trail cameras off completely. I was listening to somebody talk about Blake Shelton's ranch or something in Oklahoma. He got rid of all his trail cameras because he's like, I got tired of knowing what's out there. I just want to go hunt and not have an expectation of hunting a certain deer, which I like that too. I mean, there's give and take on the private. Now, on the public side of things, and I think this is where you'll fall in, it's like I can get behind cell cameras not being a thing on public, because like you're talking about that 200-inch deer on one ridge, there's 45 cell cameras there. It's like, okay, we're getting pretty perverted here.
Yeah.
I mean, were you with me this spring? We walked up somewhere, and there was like 3 cell cameras all converged on one spot.
That freaks me out.
And it was like, this is a little bit much, with lock boxes and solar panels, and there's like a kill switch with a spear. Not really. But there was like a lock box and solar panels and all that. So it's like, that's a little excessive. I mean, you can make arguments in either way, but I definitely see, I wouldn't care either way if, they said, hey, no more cameras on public.
The big deal with public is some of these areas that you go scout in are thick bedding areas. They're like sensitive areas.
Yep.
Some of them are down in spots where you don't get very good service. The service on these things is getting better. The battery life's getting better. Years ago, we would put them in there and leave them. Because we wanted to just, we wanted to bait the trot line, come back 6 months to check it. But also because it's sensitive to go in there and check it.
Yep.
Like, if you go in there and set it, if you go back and check it every 2 weeks, those deer are not going to keep using that bedding area. So you set it in there and forget it. You may hunt the edges of the bedding area, but you're not going in there. But now, when people can go set cell cameras wherever, they go right in the middle of them, and they put those cell cameras up until Daddy's home, and then here they come. So the deer, I think, are getting pressured more in that sense. Like, people now, they don't mind about, because that's been the biggest issue. If you got to hike 2 miles in there to set a camera up and then come back every 2 weeks and check it, like, you're constantly have to go in and out and in and out. Now, especially if you're a non-resident or something, or somebody that's not from that area, you can drive up there and put out half a dozen of these things and go right in the center of those sensitive areas and put them up and get that intel immediately on your phone. all
Yep.
the time, and you don't have to go back and forth and back and forth. It's taken a lot of the legwork out of it. And then, like I said, I think it may help somebody that's trying to kill a specific deer, but whenever they get to be a certain size and people start losing their marbles over them, like you said, then you end up in these spots where they're everywhere. We used to see trail cameras a lot on public, same amount of people that are out there on these areas that we're hunting, a lot of them. It's like it's not the pressure. It ebbs and flows for the most part through the years. It's public, so there's always hunters out there. But that's the one thing I've noticed, especially in Iowa, which is a big buck state, quote unquote, is the amount of cell cameras in the woods.
Yeah.
And you said in Ohio, the same thing. It's like there's not necessarily more people in a lot of them spots, but there are way more cameras now.
But if there's a big buck, there's likely to be more. Like, for example, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself.
That's all right.
Well, a lot of these things I kind of, there's just so many things to say. But, like, for example, if there's a bunch of different individuals that have scattered cell cameras in a spot, like you're saying, they don't have to go there. And, like, let's say somebody that doesn't have the cell camera arsenal goes out there and they find the sign from the buck. They find it and they're like, okay, I'm going to commit some of my season to this. And then the next day, everybody else starts getting these pictures. Well, they're just sitting back at home, hunting other spots, doing whatever. But now, just because they put a camera out there however long ago, I mean, maybe years ago, if they got solar panels on it, which I'm seeing
Oh, yeah.
in a lot of places. If that's the case, I mean, they could literally be out of state. And now all of a sudden they're able to just go right to that spot where the other guy or girl went out there and found the sign and is like, okay, I'm going to commit some of my season. And then to argue that that's like a equal playing field, you kind of lose me at a point there where it's like that it isn't. And so, like, I guess y'all ready for the hot take? This is something that I think about more and more. And I know I have a strong opinion on it. I'm willing to talk about it with anybody, but I just don't see a situation in which I'm going to change my mind at this point on the cell camera thing. But here's my perspective, like, long term. When I was younger and trail cameras first started coming out, my grandpa got a few of them, and we would run them. And same deal as everything. It's like you're checking them, you're spending time middle of the day, like, oh, I got to go check that camera. And, like, we had fun with it. We enjoyed it. We started to know what was around more, and that definitely changes your perspective. And so I did that all the way up through college, and then right after college, went to Midwest Whitetail, met Warb, Greg, and all the other guys. And that season, going into that first year hunting together, me and you and Mike went in and hung the stand and set up the spot where we ended up killing a buck with the canoe. And that would have been whatever the time was. Like, it was, I remember we waited right for that, like, month before season or a couple weeks before season. I can't remember exactly what the law is, so I don't want to, misspeak on that. But whatever the time was that we were able to leave our stand out there, we went out like that next day because we were super excited about that spot. Hung the stand, had the setup ready, and then, I don't know what it is, maybe 400 yards, 300 yards away up on some ag fields that are on public, we put up a trail camera. And it was just a spot where we expected that we were going to find deer hitting a scrape.
Old scrape leading out to ag fields.
If they were going
in between bedding area.
Yep, and if they were feeding there, that was going to tell us that back in the bedding area where our stand was, we were going to be ready to rock. And so it was October 16th, beautiful cold front day. Multiple bucks in our group were knocked down right in that little, it was like 15th, 16th, 17th, we knocked down like 2 or 3 bucks. And so we went out to that spot. Warb ran in, grabbed the card, and we had bucks on it. And they weren't necessarily, I think maybe one was that day or the day before, but just generally speaking, they were hitting that field and does were going past, and it gave us confidence to go into that bedding area. Well, with great weather, right at last light, we had a big buck come in, and we ended up getting him. That hunt was, I mean, forever like one of the cool, that was such a cool experience, and I'll never I like love that hunt. But then once we did that, it was like, okay, that worked, and like now we have an expectation. That sign looks like this under that scrape. Bucks were hitting it, and it just was like kind of confirmation telling us that we already knew, like we knew what we wanted to see, and it was there. The camera just confirmed it, and so it kind of just helped take that next step to be like, if we're seeing this amount of sign,
You don't need the pictures.
you don't even need the picture. It's good enough.
Unless you're worried about what's on, unless you're worried
you're-
about what's on his head.
right,
Yeah.
big inches, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, really. So, like, as time went on, you know, I think the next couple of years we did some of that, but, like, I think we just always, you know, at least in the situations I was in, I felt like it kind of got further and further away from even really paying much attention. A lot of the trail camera stuff we were doing was putting them out there, leaving them, come back, like, at the end of the season. And don't get me wrong, that information, like you're saying, is, like, the coolest. You can totally use that for the next year. And I really enjoy looking at pictures. I love seeing what's out there. I think trail cameras are quite an amazing invention. But then 2021 was like the real deal breaker for me, because Jake and I hunted together. I filmed him. I think it ended up being like 16 days straight, you know, of hunting, and we were struggling. And the reason we were struggling is the same story that you guys have. This picture would come through, and I mean, I hate to throw him right under the bus, but old Jacob would be like, let's go there. And I'd be like, dude, I mean, we're doing that, and it's not working. We're just not seeing, we're consistently not seeing that buck. And I do think there's a situation in which it could have worked, and I think what we were always hoping was a big buck would go past that camera, and he'd be locked down with a doe, and he'd still be in that area, and we'd be able to get eyes on him and be able to make a move or whatever. Or he'd come back through with the doe, but it never happened. And it wasn't until we finally just, like, scrapped it, got a whole different perspective change, and then we found a hot spot and ended up killing a buck.
This is a common
It's
theme.
a very
here.
common
Yeah.
theme. But then I turned around, I went from filming him in Ohio to going to Iowa. Or, I'm sorry.
Iowa going to
But
Ohio.
I flipped that. We were in Iowa, went to Ohio, and it was just like everywhere we went, trail cameras, and I mean cell cameras specifically, and like there were these certain ridges that would just be loaded, where it's like, I mean, a deer can't exist in here and not get his picture taken, and there's nobody there, there's nobody parked there, it's just surveillance cameras all over the place. And I mean, call them whatever you want. I like to call them surveillance cameras.
Hot
'cause
tip.
That's what they are.
Hot take. If you walk into a ridge system in one of those places like that, it's torch with sign, and all of a sudden there's 15 of this exact same Tacticam brand camera with the same guy's initials on every one of them, bet you there's a giant buck in there.
right, yeah, seriously. It's a great confirmation that there is one around. And so I think just over time I was seeing that, and I mean, you know, you're standing there, you're looking at this sign, and you start getting that kind of like little rush of excitement, and then you look up and there's, you know, a surveillance cam pointing at you, and it's like, ew.
Way down. Yep.
So, you know, that continued to happen. I mean, I remember being in, we were hunting, you and I were hunting with Jake, and we were out in the plains,
Oh yeah.
and I'm walking along this fence line, and it's like, there's antenna sticking up on the backside of a fence post, and it's just like, I remember standing there specifically looking at that one camera, and that's when I realized, it's like, man, a guy could be in Florida.
Yep.
Get a picture. You know, it could be, like, let's say it's rifle season.
Mm-hmm.
You get a picture of a buck, fly in, you know, go into a plot or something, fly in, and just, I mean, I started thinking
People
of all
are doing
these,
that now.
Yeah, for sure.
People are doing that. People are hunting like multiple states and putting out thousands of dollars worth of cameras until they get something that is of the size they want.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are sending it to that area and hunting.
And I started just more and more over
Just-
the last handful of years thinking about this more and more situations. And by all means, our experience has been that they're not actually helpful. We're sitting here telling you that they're not helpful, but I can also draw up a whole bunch of situations in which they would be absolutely helpful, to where you could get a picture and kill a buck same day, same hour. And there's some laws in some states where same day, like I remember talking to Brett Joy about these cameras in New Hampshire, where he lives. You can't look at those pictures until 24 hours or the next day. Basically, there has to be a nighttime period of no hunting between when you can use the picture to your advantage. And I mean, I do think rules like that can be helpful, but it just starts to really, for me, cross this line of we just can know too much. And I think the thing that's important to keep in mind, like especially if you're just out there trying to hunt a buck or a mature buck, like which our group does, right? We're not, by all means, we are just like, I think everybody wants to shoot a big buck or a bigger buck than they have in the past. But if you continue to learn and spend time in the woods rather than think about all the time that you could be putting into your cameras. If you actually take that time and invest it into continuing to learn about the animal itself and let the animal teach you about what their behaviors are, like, believe in yourself, believe in your woodsmanship skills. You are good enough to find that buck, because how many times do you find that hot sign, it's blown up, and you're like, man, I'll put a camera here, and then sure as shoot, there he is.
There he is.
Like, I mean, I've never one time put a camera up or been a part of putting a camera up and looked at the spot and thought, or put the camera up and been like, oh, we're not going to get a picture of a big buck here. It's like, well, hell yeah, you're going to get like, there's no way we're not. The scrape's as big as this table. We're going to get a picture of him. You know, what more do I really need to know? So I feel like just trusting the sign and reading that, for one, for me, makes it more enjoyable. But then also on top of it, I do just start to think that, like, it creates an unequal playing field when you put money into it, right? Because people will make the argument like, well, it's about time. For me, it's about time, whatever. It's like, when we're making hunting trips, a lot of times we get accused of like, well, you guys can hunt all the time. We still got to go back and make videos. Like, we have this window of time that we like are going to be there to hunt. It's not like we're hunting there for 3 months straight. We're going in there, we're going to hunt for a trip.
Yeah, it's no different than a guy saving his vacation time and
Exactly.
going for a week.
Exactly.
Except we're editing a lot of times while we're hunting. So we'll go to a state and we'll be there for 5 to 7, 8 days.
Yep.
Sometimes shorter. Sometimes we'll go and we'll hunt like a couple days. Then we'll go home, do whatever we got to do, spend time with family, and then we'll come back and we'll hunt a couple more days.
Yep.
I mean,
But then it's like, if I guess the thing when I bring up the money thing, it's like, these things aren't cheap. I hear guys brag about their cell cam bill.
yeah.
Nice. Very cool. You know, you put a ton of money into your cell cameras. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the person that's living in the area that doesn't want to spend that type of money, they just want to put time into it or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's like, if I can pay more to get more surveillance out there, that starts to make an unequal playing field. And like, that's always just my baseline of the argument, to where if you're on private land, to be honest, it is what it is. Like, do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to try to tell you how to work your land or whatever. Public land, it starts to get pretty weird, because as these things become more popular and more available and more people are spending more and more money on them, the playing field isn't the same. And it just starts to create this unequal advantage, to where somebody can just not be out there and then start getting all this information really quickly, and they're literally not even spending time in season out there. Like, they put all these trail cameras up. I mean, what, 2 or 3 days of putting trail cameras up? And I mean, even if you only get 5 of them up, or 3, 1 per day, I mean, that's still more information if you're getting it to your phone, especially you get a solar panel and you never have to go back. I mean, you're getting way more information than the other people that are doing the same thing, sitting at home with no cameras. It's just not the same. It's not the same playing field. And I just have gotten to a point where I'm very against it. And it, I don't know. It's one of these things. It's where it wears on me to the point where, like, I've over time I've gotten more and more willing to argue against it. But for a while, I tried to be like quiet about it. Like, yeah, I don't really like it. And now I'm starting to kind of be like, all right, I need to like at least voice my opinion because I am becoming more and more against it. And I'm sorry that if I'm offending anybody, but man, they frustrate me.
It's like you said, it's a huge bummer when you say, you know, somebody says, well, you hunt all the time, you get to do whatever. Say we go on this trip, we know we got 5 days to hunt, and we got to go, never been there, got to go find the deer, find the sign first. And you're out there and you're plugging along and you finally start finding that hot sign and you look over and you see the camera, it's like immediate morale, you know, downer. Like it's a huge buzzkill to me.
Yeah, but the reality is that person might be in Florida and they might not come back.
Exactly. I mean,
still,
it's true. But
I get what you're saying.
It's a buzzkill.
I just think that I ain't as successful with them.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm better off, like Ted said. I feel like I'm better off just trusting my woodsmanship skills and just
that for
doing
sure.
that. I'm better off
For
without
sure.
the things.
But I also think then too that it gets kind of weird where like, you know, it doesn't matter who it is. Like if you pull into a spot and you don't really want people to start like let's say for example you're hunting or you've been successful the last few years and you got a really good spot that you're really excited about. There's really no reason anybody would know that you're there if you don't tell anybody. But now people, like, it's not even a game of getting a picture of a buck. I mean, if I know Nick's super successful on public land in my area and all of a sudden I get pictures of him, well, now his spot's gone because as soon as I find him and I start telling I mean, there's all kinds of levels to this that I think get really weird.
I don't like the trophy hunting aspect of it.
That
That's
too.
what
I gotta
frustrates
pee
me.
so bad that I
Go
gotta
ahead.
just take a break. And I'm sorry for getting so excited. I get so heated on it.
I think it's good. It's good conversation.
I do.
I don't like the trophy hunting aspect of it. I don't. That's just me. That's my gripe, I guess. People can do what they want. And I know there's people listening to this that do enjoy that aspect, but I don't. I love being able to go in there and not know what is in the woods.
More like well, yeah, a trophy is whatever you think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I want to kill a big buck. but
Everybody, because if you say, well, like, I'm against trophy hunting, but then you go shoot a 170-inch deer, people are like, well, you're trophy hunting. Look, no. A 170-inch deer just happened to walk in front of me and give me a shot, and I was lucky enough to kill it.
I found big rubs and a big track and a big scrape.
Opportunistic trophy hunter. But a trophy is whatever. I mean, hell, that spike I killed in Indiana with a muzzleloader a few years ago was trophy. That was a trophy to me. So it's like it's whatever you think it is, whatever you want it to be. But yeah, I think what you're saying is like when you're putting out trail cameras and you're watching deer go by and watching, 130 goes, you're like, no. 140 comes through, now at 165-inch deer comes through, you're like, yep, okay, I'm going in there now.
That's
like,
a winner.
Yeah, that's
well, that's what I was going to talk
not
about.
cool.
I was listening to a podcast not too long ago. I listened to the Jay Scott podcast. He's a friend of mine, outfitter out west, and he does all kinds of mainly Western hunting stuff. And in recent times, they've outlawed trail cameras in Arizona. Arizona, if you don't know, that's kind of a trophy elk state, where they manage a lot of the units for trophy quality. So they pull a lot of tags out of those units and they keep it, the pressure light, so these bulls can grow to older age classes. Well, what was happening is outfitters are selling hunts in those units. And, the bulls they're growing big bulls. But a big bull could be 350 inches. He could be 400 inches. It's no different than the deer game that you just mentioned where you go from 130, no big deal, 140, like whatever, 165, I got my attention, 190, okay, I sold my house, my truck, I got divorced, and now that's all I'm worried about. People are sucked into that. Anyway, same deal out west. In Arizona, in these trophy units, when it came to deer or elk, some of these units are heavily forested where you can't glass, but they have to water because it's an arid environment.
Yep.
So on these water holes, there would be 15 cameras, and all of them would be a different outfitter. And it's because there's a 400-inch bull that you use in that water hole. And they would be, everybody is going in on their side-by-sides constantly, changing batteries, hooking solar panels up. And you go to that water hole, and it's just like Radio Shack, just pointed at that thing. You know,
Kids don't even know what
And
Radio
when-
Shack is.
that's true. I'm old. Anyway, that's what was going on, and they're targeting these super big anomaly trophies. Now, in my mind, a trophy is what I'm looking for is a semi-mature buck. You know, he could have a 100-inch rack. He could have a 150-inch rack, like you just mentioned. If I find a big rub, a big scrape, a big track, I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be a big fat 300-pound buck that's got a 90-inch rack. It may be a 180-inch buck that's making it. But I'm stoked for whatever's coming down the trail that's leaving that sign.
Might be a 122-inch 2-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. But the point is when you have that camera there over those water holes in Arizona, they know which bull is making that wallow or running it all the time. All of a sudden, every outfitter in the unit knows that there is this anomaly, this 400-inch unicorn that's living right there. So guess what happens opening day? This amazing trophy unit with such few tags ends up with everybody sucked into this one area trying to shoot this once-in-a-lifetime bull that is not around every tree. You know, there's a bunch of really mature 340 type bulls, beautiful elk.
Huge
Bulls.
Huge
bulls.
Type of stuff that we've never even seen.
And a lot of those guys are not even concerned about it because they got a picture of a unicorn right here and a bunch of pictures. And anyway, long story short, they went and they outlawed cameras completely in those units. And now there was an outfitter on there talking about it the other day. He had some great perspective on Jay Scott's podcast. It might have been recorded a year ago. I don't remember. But he's like, dude, now we're taking clients in there, and we have no information on what elk are in there because it's so densely forested. Like, there's very few glassing opportunities. You can't get their picture. So it's back to just looking at tracks and finding elk sign and hearing bugles and going in the woods and hunting them. He said a lot of these clients now, we're like, you know, if a nice mature bull comes in, shoot him if you get excited. And we're excited for them. So they're going out there and they're hunting these elk and they're calling in those giant 340, 350 bulls that are coming in blowing snot all over the place, ripping the woods up. And, you know, this guy from Florida that's waited 20 years to get this tag is just about to pee his pants with this elk coming in. He comes around a bush at 15 yards. He smokes him. He just had the hunt of a lifetime. And he did not even think one time about how long his swords were.
Yeah.
You know,
he didn't think about the 400 that might be.
Exactly, because when you get 300 pictures of that elk, you have time to blow it up on your computer, look at how long the beams are, measure how wide he is, look at the mass, figure, like, you got your pad and paper out, and you're like, I think that time's about 15 inches. Then before you know it, you get to 390 or 400. And then you're telling your clients this the whole time. Oh. Anyway, you're telling them this the whole time, and they're getting fired up about it, so all they're worried about is the inches.
Yeah. So then 340 is not cool to them because they
Right.
know there's
They're like, is he
400
big
out
enough?
there.
Is he big enough? Is he big enough? And he's like, yep, he's not the one we're after. You know, so he comes in, they have a cool encounter, whatever, but he walks off, and the guy's like over there with his heart pounding, but he doesn't shoot it because it's not, quote unquote, the guy in there. But that outfitter was like, it's been really cool because now we've gone away from that. And in those units, now we have all these satisfied clients that are killing bulls of all different calibers, and we're having these insanely good hunts. And we don't have to run back and forth to the unit spending gas money on and batteries and buying these cameras. He's like, we go out there and we scout, we hang out, and we have a good time and we hunt. And he said it's been so refreshing to do that. And I hadn't even thought about it. And that's a guy with a full rounded perspective on this whole thing. That's a guy who is outfitted and has done the camera thing and has chased these giant unicorn elk, and now it's kind of come full circle and has got back to just hunting, and he's enjoying every minute of it. I'm like, man, if a guy like that is that trophy has that trophy mindset can come full circle and be here without him and going back to just relying on his woodsmanship, his knowledge of elk hunting, it's like that's pretty interesting to me to think that somebody could do that.
Yeah.
And not be, because he was honest. He was like, when it first happened, I was pissed because it was going to change my style of hunting that I had, you know, formed for 5-6 years. But he said as time goes on, he said, I think there's actually even more really big bulls now that are out there because people don't know where they are. So the quality of the hunting is even going up somewhat.
It spreads people out.
Spreads people out.
It just makes the overall experience more enjoyable for everyone, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And that's a state that has had it in place now for a while, and is having some pretty interesting results. That's a situation-specific deal, though. Like if you're in a unit where you can glass real effectively, you're going to have guys on knobs everywhere looking, at these elk or these mule deer or whatever. But if you're in a heavily timbered area, like a lot of the public lands that we hunt, if you take those cameras away, you do not know what's in there.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to lay eyes on them.
Well, and you have to. Yep, you either have to have some past experience with the animal itself, which, the days before cameras, like my dad's, bow hunting days when I was a kid, like, and when I first started too, it's like you saw one, and then you might see a buck. And who even knew? Like, you'd see a buck, and you'd be like, oh, that was an 8-point. Maybe that's that one I saw last weekend, or maybe that's one I saw last year. It could have been. It's 8-pointer. He got a little thicker. But, like, that's kind of, I guess, just fun. Like, that was always fun and exciting. The only other way you find out, and, like, something that was real inspiring to me back in the Midwest Whitetail days, I borrowed a book from Bill that was Roger Rothar, and he hunted in Ohio way back, and he would like draw sketches of the deer that he saw. He would draw their tracks, and he would follow them based off sign. And I mean, to me, that is like the coolest thing.
He was one of the most hardcore dudes out there too, hunting with a stick forever.
And you're talking about like reading sign to figure out which deer that is, or what size of deer. And to me, some of my favorite stories are when we were just hunting crazy sign and trying to piece it together. Like, I won't go, I'm pretty sure I've talked about it on different podcasts before, but in 2022 Keith and I were hunting up in your area, and we were basing it all off. We're following what we believe was just this same big buck, just based off this crazy big sign. And it was like we were constantly putting these pieces of the puzzle together, and we ended up seeing a really big buck in like very gray light 6 minutes before legal light. But I saw him through my binoculars, and like the sign matched what we were seeing.
He was a large animal.
Large, and he had a lot of points, and it made sense why some of those trees were shredded the way that they were. And to me, like, you're going to be wrong sometimes, right? You're going to see sign that you think is a big buck, and it's not as big or whatever. But I guess the mystery to me has kept it so much more fun, and I can guarantee you my heart is racing a lot more when I don't know what's coming around that bush versus hoping that it's a specific one, right? Like, if I'm sitting there, like you're saying in that situation, we were using the example of the elk hunters. If you're sitting there and you're hearing a buck grunting coming around the vegetation and you get to full draw, I mean, your heart is going to be racing. And maybe he steps out and he is a four-corner and you don't shoot him. So be it. But that moment beforehand.
Yeah, but that's the moment you have to judge him on.
Yep.
Is like in the heat of battle.
Yep.
That's what you have. You don't have 1,000 pictures to look at all summer.
Yep.
You just have that moment to look at him. And, and you need to be happy with whatever you end up shooting because you're taking the animal's life and putting your tag on it. You owe that respect to the animal. And I'll land the plane with my thoughts here. Trophy hunting is widely not accepted by the majority of the population. We kind of get down with it sometimes because we're in our circle of, comfort within our hunting group. 75% of the general population does not approve of it, which is fine. You can take it or leave that. But keep in mind, we need to I want bow hunting and, hunting in general to be around for generations to come. And when you take that out of the equation, it becomes more about the hunt, more about woodsmanship, more about the mysticism of what's around the corner. And it's not about measuring stuff. And I think that's widely more accepted by people,
absolutely.
even the people that are against hunting.
Absolutely.
Because that's the thing, is like the people that are on the fence about hunting, or they're like, okay, I could see hunting for food, and the woodsmanship side of it, all that. But when you start getting into this way down the rabbit hole on the trail camera thing and like targeting a specific animal because of his antlers from states away, that's what they do not agree with.
Yeah. I think of it like if I'm talking to my friends or family that are non-hunters, what are the parts about hunting that I want to focus on when talking about it with them?
Well, sure as hell not that.
Right. I would never, ever, and I don't do it, so it's pretty easy to not do. But it's like, I would never, like, if I'm standing with somebody, like, let's say I'm standing there with Nick, and I'm like, hey, Nick, meet non-hunting friend Coffee Cup here. And Nick's like, yeah, I love hunting, Coffee Cup. He's like, I love it, man. We get our cell cameras out, and we're checking them. We got cell cameras in 6 different states. I'm like, Nick, stop. You're going to freak Coffee. Like, you're making us look bad in front of Coffee Cup, right? Where if Nick, on the other hand, is like, I really like to hunt because of, I really care about, conservation and keeping healthy populations of wildlife, creating good wildlife habitat. I like to do it for the food. Then I'm like, yeah, Nick, keep talking. Coffee Cup is going to, like, have a better view of hunting now.
I get so fired up when I see a wild
really
animal,
Because that's true.
Yeah.
If it isn't true, then, like, maybe it's time to, like, investigate your own reasons of doing this. And has it gotten too far for you? Because, by golly, I'm sitting there in a tree yesterday watching a hog, and I'm like freaking out, like, just sitting there watching him doing all this weird hog stuff, and like that's like super exciting to me. It's really fun to be out there and just experiencing the woods. I mean, I remember watching, I didn't even tell you about this, but I saw a cardinal flash through there last night. I'm like, man, I hope that thing comes over here and I can film it, and just pretty cool stuff out there. Like, animals are cool, wildlife's cool, and to me that's a big reason. That's one of the many reasons that I like to do it. But basing, or telling somebody that's a non-hunter that you do it for antlers, they're not going to be as likely to accept that. And I think that that's just something to keep in mind in this topic. And I agree with you, Aaron. Like, as many reasons that there are that I have that are against trail cameras, it is ultimately the trophy hunting and how far I feel that we're tipping in that direction just to get a bigger buck, just to get a bigger bowl, just to be more effective. And it's like that shit, your goal every time, like I think of like sports this way, it's like every time you play, your goal should be to win. But if you don't, like, focus on the other things, like, did I get better? So, like, okay, hunting, the goal should be, at least I view it this way, my goal is to get something. But if I don't...
the argument against that, though, is the guy that says, well, I want to get better at everything I'm doing all the time. And in his mind, he's like, if I kill a 130 this year, to get better, I need to kill a 140.
Yeah, right.
And then to get better, I need to kill a 160. I need to step my game. I need to shoot a 6-year-old, not a 5-year-old. And then I need to shoot an 8-year-old, not a 7-year-old, and whatever.
And I guess for all of us, it's like we get better at reading sign or, just various
You
things.
can decide what those factors are with hunting. That's the thing. I respectfully listen to people that have that perspective, but I don't agree with it. This is not a baseball game.
Yeah.
You're taking an animal's life.
Right.
You're killing it. You're not going out and shooting, see who can make as many free throws. This is not the same. This is not the same thing. You're killing this animal, and this game, if you want to put it that way, if you want to say that's what hunting is, started for food.
Yeah.
Like that's why we do it. And conservation is to make sure we have these populations moving forward. It doesn't have anything to do with your personal goals of shooting more and more inches. Like, that all has came into people's brains in the last 30, 40 years. It wasn't there for thousands of years before that. We've created this in our society.
Yeah. And I think that going out there with the intention to get something like that is my goal. My goal is to get something, but if I don't, there's other reasons that I do it. Like, it's not the only reason that I do it, is my point. My only reason for hunting isn't to get one. Like, I love coming back and not being successful, because those are the things that you remember that you change, right? Like, oh, I didn't see anything today. Like, what did I do wrong? Well, that part of it is motivating to me too. I just love thinking about it all the time. It gives me something to focus on and just constantly be trying to learn more about. And I just love that, man. I mean, yeah, it's awesome. Did you guys notice I love hunting? I don't know if you maybe noticed that.
Picked up on
I
it.
noticed you guys do too.
Oh, yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I think we pretty much hit everything there.
You think?
Yep.
Pretty
Sure
opinionated
do.
podcast.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
we
got
did kind of rabbit hole a little bit, but, I mean,
Rabbit Canyon.
yeah, it was good.
Well,
I
we
think it
were
was all
down to
good.
Rabbit Canyon or two.
I feel like it's one of those things too. Like, I guess I do get opinionated on it, and like I've had many conversations with friends about it, and like I would never shy away from talking about it. It's just, and I'm not trying to offend people. I'm not trying to make people feel bad. I guess I do want to say that. I'm not saying you're wrong. Like, if it's legal, you're not doing anything wrong. I'm just saying I think it's worth considering what the future could look like and how it could be impacting the overall view of hunting, not just us as hunters, like what Warb's saying, with everybody, non-hunters. And that's the most important thing. Like, how is it going to be viewed as,
How's hunting going to be accepted in
the
modern day
future?
culture?
Yep.
Essentially.
Yeah, because that is the
you
most
can't-
important thing. At the end of the day, if hunting gets, if hunting gets voted out, then it doesn't matter it doesn't matter what side of this argument you're
Well, and
on.
that's that. I think I could be wrong on this. So if I am, just let me know via email or social media. I'm sure a lot of you that don't like me very much will let me know. But I think in Arizona that was one of the gripes because there was a bunch of cell cameras on public land where people were recreating, not just hunting, and it was bothering them. Like driving around out there and just seeing these surveillance cameras all over the place. They're like, "What the heck? This is public land. I'm out here, riding my bike with my kid. I don't want
And now I'm
to
getting
run into this."
pictures
And now
of
somebody's taking
myself.
my picture.
Yeah, somebody's taking my picture,
mean,
and they didn't
it's
like
creepy.
that. That was another thing, like in the commission meetings, I think, whenever they were considering removing
Mm-hmm.
them, that was also a factor. So that's your non-hunting population that's using the same lands that you are.
Yep.
Now, yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to become more. This conversation ain't going away.
No.
There's more and more states weighing getting rid of them.
Yeah.
And the cell cameras have pushed this issue into overdrive recently. So it's quite possible. I mean, I know somebody mentioned at one time Kentucky was looking at doing it. Maybe they already did. I'm not sure. I know it's on the docket in Iowa. In Missouri, you can't use them on Missouri state conservation lands. So that's tons and tons of public land where you can't use them. Can you use them in Kansas?
I think they just changed that
Yeah, maybe
there.
like last year or the year
Yeah.
before they just changed it where I don't think you can on
May-
public.
Oh, you can on public, but you can on private.
I think so.
Yeah, this is happening.
I mean,
This is-
and like we keep saying this, but as like public, get rid of them. Private, cool. If it's your land, do what you want to do within the
Yeah.
laws. But I mean,
Yeah, I feel like it. I mean, there's still reasons that I personally wouldn't hunt with them on private. Same reasons that we're talking about as far as chasing your tail and as far as like just not being the way that I want to do it. But it's like if you're on private land, I feel like there's just I don't know.
You're affecting less people
right.
because
Right.
it's your place.
It's your land, and
Yeah.
if it's legal, it's not as big of a deal. And yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting topic because the technology is only going to get better. The first conversation I had on our podcast about this was with Mark Kenyon, and he was talking about it because of live stream cameras.
Oh yeah.
To where you're basically able to just check in. So you could put it up like the example that I always think of is like field. So I could be sitting here, field's just out of sight over that fence row over there, and I'm just like, yeah, it's gun season.
Oh,
Let's say
there
you
he
got
is.
a month-long gun season, or some states have multiple month-long gun seasons. Like, oh, yep, there's a bunch of deer out there. I'll go out there. I mean, that to me is not the same as going hunting. I mean, flat out. I have a hard time believing anybody would even disagree.
Oh, you can fly drones over this property right now and with thermal imaging
Right.
and zoom in on every
I mean,
buck that you
it
have
only
here.
gets weirder. It only
Pick
gets
one out
weirder.
and be like, oh, there he is.
I mean,
Let's get the wind right and just get over here within 80 yards of where he's at. Keep the drone hovering above him while he get close.
One
And
of
let
the-
me know if he moves. I mean, it's a wild time
One
in
of
the
the
world.
scariest things that I ever had somebody tell me is I was with Cody Kellum, and he was like, I know you're against the cell camera thing. He's like, but you ever think about people using thermals? And I was like, not really. And he's like, well, there's people out here that will sit and thermal a hillside in thick brush, just like, instead of having to nitpick every little nook and cranny, look for an ear or tine or nose or tail or whatever, they're just able to say, no deer, no deer, no deer, no deer, deer, and then they focus their spot. Then they can get in there and nitpick. So instead of having to do it here,
They
you're
can
just
just
like,
go right
here,
through the trees.
they're
and
right
see 'em.
there.
Yeah.
It's
a wild time.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just joking.
Anyway, yeah, if you guys got opinions or thoughts on the cameras, please let us know. We like talking about this stuff, and like I said, the convo ain't going away. So
Yeah, get my heart racing again.
That's
get all
the-
fired up.
that's
Is
the
it-
pod on cell cameras.